Let's graph an example of a little bit more complicated trig function. This one is y equals 3 sine of 2x and then a minus 1. So first what we need to do when we take a look at this is we need to pick out what are the amplitude, the vertical shift, the period, and the phase shift if we have any changes. In this case, we could see that the amplitude is going to be 3. The vertical shift, that d is -1, so that means our axis will shift down 1. The period is 2 pi over b, but that gives us 2 pi over 2, which is pi. And in this case, we do not have a phase shift because we don't have a c up there. So it would be -0 over 2, which would be 0. So it's not going to move left or right from where we normally do. Now, to start this out, we'd probably, a good place to start would be to put in our vertical shift. So we know that our new axis is going to, instead of being the x-axis, is going to be down here where y equals a -1. And then from there, we could either look at the amplitude or the period. If we were looking at the period, we could say, well, it would need to start where our trig function normally does, right there on our new axis. And instead of going over to 2 pi, it's only going over to pi. So this is where it crosses here. And then we know that halfway in between it also crosses. All right, so it's kind of like it's up there at the x-axis, but instead we've shifted everything down 1. Now we need to know what happens in between. What happens between 0 and pi over 2 and pi over 2 and pi. And so for that, we come over and look at our amplitude. Since the amplitude is 3, right here, that means the high spot would go up 3 and the low spot would go down 3. So here is our normal spot halfway in between, but it needs to go, and so normally it would be right up here, but this time it needs to go up 3. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, and it would be right here. That would be the high spot. And the low spot, which would happen halfway in between the pi over 2 and the pi at 3/4 pi, needs to go down 3. So it would go 1, 2, 3, and it would be down here. We can take these 5 spots, the 3 places right here where it crosses the axis, and then the high and the low right here, and we can now draw a graph. So what's going to happen when we do this is we're going to say that it comes up here, goes down, and back up. And so that's a little messy, but you get the idea of what's going on with this. This could continue on. If we wanted to go through another period of our function, we can show that. Oftentimes what we do is we take 1 to see what's happening.